All right, man. I think we are live.
I'll just refresh your channel, see if it's up. It takes a second.
Okay.
Yep, I do see it on the videos tab, so it could be live.
Says it's live.
Yep, it says it is. And I've got a bell thing here. What's this? All right, live chat. Okay, so it could be. We could be up and running.
Decent. The little eyeball thing up here is 0, so we don't have anybody yet.
That's all right. We'll see. People aren't that quick on the draw sometimes, though.
Yeah, I know I'm not. Just got a notification on my phone, now live in your channel. Right?
Thanks for notifying me.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of strange. Well, the interesting thing about this is, though, is that even though there's no one watching, it's going to be uploaded as soon as it's done. So
exactly.
And I almost feel like we should actually start talking to whoever ends up watching this after the fact.
Yeah.
Guess we'll start with introductions, man. So I am hCup here in Waco, Texas. I ride a 2009 Yamaha FZ6R. Joining me today is RideThe6 out of Canada. Where at in Canada specifically, man?
So I'm just outside Toronto, GTA. So I'm just east of the city, about, I'd say, half an hour. Little town, sleepy little town called Whitby. So we got a lot of bikes around this area, and I definitely have seen a couple FZ6Rs around here too. Not just mine, but there are some others.
Right on. What about your bike, man? Tell us about your FZ6R. What year is she?
So my bike, I bought it. It's a 2014. I did buy it new off the showroom floor. I guess it would have been 2014. I don't think it was a leftover the year I bought it. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I was like, well, let me look around, and I really liked the color scheme they had on the bike. And it was funny because I actually bought it at a Kawasaki dealer, and they were doing a live demo event on Kawasaki's that day, and I went in there and bought the Yamaha. So the dealer got a bit of a kick out of it, actually.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So
did you buy your bike new, or was it used, or?
No. So this is a 2009 model. As you know, it's the introductory year for the bike.
Yeah.
And it's remained virtually unchanged in every aspect throughout its entire production lifespan, all the way through 2017. This bike in particular was bought brand new in Golden, Colorado, which is also where Coors Light is brewed. It was originally sold there, and the only reason I know that is because I'm the third owner, and the guy I bought the bike from, I bought off of a parking lot. I bought it off of them in a parking lot in Longview, Texas. He posted it to Craigslist for $3,500 cash.
Wow.
And that's what I paid for this bike.
That's a good deal.
Anyway, yeah, it was an exceptional deal. But yeah, so I bought it with 11,200 miles on it back in 2015. So I've been riding. This is going on my 6th year of riding now, and I commute on it daily. Ride it every single day. Sometimes rain or shine. Most of the time, actually. But yeah, I'm the third owner, and the only reason I know all that is because the guy I bought it from actually had the original bill of sale from the dealership in Colorado where the first guy bought it.
Yeah.
So the first owner kept all that stuff, receipts, all sorts of things, and put all that in a bag and passed it on to the guy that I bought it from. And so I still have all that stuff in a bag to this day. It's just kind of like a keepsake kind of deal, you know?
Yeah, no, it's good to, like, if you buy something, you get some documentation with it for sure. So what made you choose the FZ6R? Like, were you looking at other bikes when you were kind of shopping around, or did you do a lot of research and you just came across it? Like, what made you buy the FZ6R? Why didn't you buy a Ninja or something else?
Well, so I got on this street bike with 0 street bike experience, and in fact, well, let me answer your question first. So before I started riding this motorcycle, and this is my first and only street bike, but before I started riding this bike, um, I got to watching motovloggers. That's when I first discovered Chase on Two Wheels, Suburban Delinquent, Baker X Derrick, Snowcat up there out of Canada, all those guys. But I primarily started following Chase on Two Wheels, and he had just started his first ride series, and it was like maybe his second or third first ride he did, and it was the FZ6R over there at Mountain Motorsports in Georgia. You know, he was riding this bike, and he was just really excited about it while he was riding. He kept commenting, you know, this might be the best beginner sport bike there is, you know, and he had all these awesome remarks about it, and it stuck with me. And I continued shopping around for. I knew I wanted a 600 class. At least I thought I did. And in fact, one of the first bikes I kind of picked out for myself before discovering the FZ6R was the Ninja 300, which was brand new at the time. The Ninja 300 had just come out, and as a matter of fact, I don't think KTM even had the 390 out yet. Um, so that was my original plan, was to go with the Ninja 400, because I had it in my head that I had no business on a 600cc machine, you know, until I saw that review by Chase on Two Wheels where he explained the linear power band, and the rest is history, man. I ended up, you know, shopping for the FZ6R and found this one in Longview, Texas on Craigslist back in 2015, $3,500 cash.
Yeah, no,
And
that's a good deal for sure. Like,
yeah,
so yeah, like because I bought mine brand new at the dealer, and I think this sticker was, I think it was 8,000 or something Canadian, but that's brand new, right? So
yeah,
yeah, you can get them up here used probably for, I'd say 4 to 5,000, probably used.
yeah,
Is probably
yeah.
about the going rate on them. Um, but yeah, like I was looking at some other bikes too when I first, like I was looking at like a CBR 500R, and I was looking at probably like a Ninja 650R, I believe.
Yep, yep.
But when I compared everything, the FZ6R was just the better choice. Like it was cheaper than the 500R, so there's what's the point of buying a Honda 500 when you can get a 600 for cheaper? And then when I compared I guess the Ninja, which was a twin at that time, to the inline four, I'm like, well, I don't want a twin. So I
Yeah,
wanted the inline four because like it's silky smooth, as you know, right? So
yeah, yeah.
but
For
yeah,
me,
I ended up picking
uh,
up the FZ6R, like mainly on colors too. Like the color scheme on the bike was incredible.
yeah,
Like red with the white fairings. I was like, wow, I haven't seen anything like this. So, and the funny thing was, I didn't even test ride it. I just went in and I bought the bike. Like I did my learner's course, so up here we call it the G1, the G2, stuff like that. So I did my G1 course. I went in and bought the motorcycle with only a basic license, basically. So brand new bike, basic license, and then I kind of grew into the license sections of the motorcycle, right? So, but like you, I've been riding about 6 years. This next year might be about my seventh year, I would say.
okay. Yeah, that's pretty crazy how you guys have to get different stages of licenses. It's just like that in Europe as well. I think it's even more stringent in Europe, though. Like you basically have to start off on a freaking scooter before
Yeah,
you can do
you
anything
do.
else,
You
right?
do. Like, yeah, it's limited by CCs. And the funny thing here in Canada, not every province is like that. Like, if I go to Nova Scotia, I can get my motorcycle license, and essentially it's like a full class license. But in Ontario, they do this graduated licensing thing, and it takes a little longer. But
Yeah.
once you're over the hump, you're good to go, like full G. So
I mean, dude, truth be told, it's probably the best, right? That's for the best. It's probably the safest way to go about something like getting on a motorcycle. And maybe me personally, I've just been lucky. I mean, judging by some of the content I've uploaded, I probably am luckier than some. Um, but it probably is a good idea to forcefully be graduated by the law in your level of motorcycle riding, you know. But I mean, I hopped straight on this 600. Um, Linear power bands are linear power bands, you know, and it's not a very powerful 600cc motorcycle. And that's another thing that a lot of people kind of poo poo about this bike is that it's not a 100 horsepower machine, 100 plus, right? I mean,
Yeah.
On a good day, the right weather, the right tune, the right mods, you might be putting out 80 brake horsepower with this motorcycle, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, like even all the dyno tunes I've seen, like even my dyno tune, it was under 75 horsepower. I guess that's probably at the wheel. I don't know where exactly they measure that, but yeah, even with the Hindle exhaust and the power commander, it came in under 75 horsepower. Like, yeah, it's different. Like, it's a lot different than hopping on an R6, that's for sure, right? So, I mean, um, if you hop on an R6 as a beginner, I think you might be asking for trouble because the bike is powerful, right? It's
Yeah.
more powerful than like an FZ6R for sure. And I do get a lot of questions like, would you recommend this as a starter bike? Like, can I start on this as a first bike? And I did. I started on it as a first bike. I had never ridden before in my life. And then I did my training course in one weekend. And then I think I bought the bike the next weekend. Like, so you can do it. You can start on a 600, but don't go crazy. Don't go out and buy like an R6 for your first bike. I think you're asking for
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah. Different breeds of 600cc motorcycle, like the R6, for example, rest in peace, R6, but,
Yeah.
you know, a 14,000 RPM punch
Oh yeah.
on a 600cc like that. I personally have not experienced it because, again, this is the only street bike I've been on. Fun fact: before this motorcycle, I sold my boat in order to buy this thing, right? And I picked up for $500 a 1992 KX 250. That's a Kawasaki two-stroke dirt bike. The thing smoked like a freight train, man, because the rings were shot. It was old, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I tore ass on that thing all over my neighborhood for months. And I ended up selling it on Craigslist, flipping it for like $100 less than what I bought it for. The guy talked me down, but at the time, I had already purchased this motorcycle and I didn't have any gear. That was the deal, right? Like, I bought the bike, it sat there. I had no gear to put on to ride the damn thing on the street because here, well, that was in Louisiana at the time, where it's the law. You have to have a helmet. Now here in
Yeah.
Texas, you don't have to have a helmet, but I personally think people that don't wear helmets while they ride are idiots for
Yeah.
a plethora of reasons, man.
So do I,
But
because like as you know, like I've had my bike down twice. The first time I put it down, I was actually knocked unconscious. So um I
that's
don't
insane.
understand the whole thing with not wearing a helmet on a motorcycle. Like here in Canada, Canada wide, you need to have like a helmet. You have to.
Yeah,
It's a safety thing, and it could save your life, but at the end of the day, it's gonna like cut down on healthcare costs. Like it's just a smart idea. Like I don't get it. You know.
yeah. Hey,
Hey,
real
what's going
quick,
on, Sam?
we have one comment from Sam. I went ahead and
Yeah.
highlighted that thing. Hey guys, I have the 2012 FZ6R. I put the Two Brothers on. Sweet. Sam, what kind of fuel controller are you running? Or are you running a fuel controller? If not, you should be.
I know a lot of people like I get questions too, like, hey, I want to put an exhaust on my bike. Like, do I have to put in a power commander? Um, my response is always like, no, you don't have to, but I don't think the bike is going to run. It's not going to run ideal. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. It'll run lean.
yeah, I think it's going to run odd. Like, no, I didn't do that on my bike. Like, I actually put the power commander on my bike first before I put the exhaust on. So I was already geared up because I knew I was going to do the exhaust. So I put the power commander on first, and then I had a different map on the bike immediately without even putting the exhaust on.
Yeah, I did it all at the same time. Um, I got this exhaust and I ordered the fuel controller, had it all in one spot all at the same time, and installed it all at the same time.
Yeah. So Sam, what are you running for headers? Are you using a set of the R6 headers, or did you modify the FZ6R headers?
See, man. Hey,
Yeah.
hang on.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people put the R6 headers on, Sam. I'm not sure your situation, but so you probably have a full Two Brothers system, I would assume. Okay, yeah, full system. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of what I did on my bike too. I was initially looking at the Two Brothers, I think black carbon system or something when I was looking at it, but to get that here in Canada, by the time the conversion ratio on the dollar, that system was going to run me anywhere from $1,600 to $1,800 Canadian. So that's when I went to Hindle, and I actually got them to design an exhaust system for the FZ6R. Mine is the very first FZ6R in the world with the full Hindle exhaust system. And if you go to their website, my bike is actually on their website, or what my bike used to look like. Yeah, it looks a little different now. Like as you can see behind me, it's got a black nose cone on it, and yeah, it's been crashed a couple times, but I'm not willing to give it up yet, man. I love this bike.
Yeah, but hey, let's be honest, man. And we've got 3 folks watching, so they may not be familiar. Go ahead and tell us your little grand experiment with your FZ6R at the moment. It's
Um,
fascinating.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess people that maybe aren't familiar with my channel and that maybe are just viewers of Half Click here, like I also run an FZ6R YouTube channel, and I also do some other bike content. And currently, what I'm doing on the bike now, it mainly came about because I crashed the bike and I bent the forks pretty bad. So what I'm actually doing is I'm actually doing a full R6 front end swap on the FZ6R. Right now, I have all the forks off. I actually have the R6 triple tree right here. So there's the bottom triple tree. I've had it in the bike. Everything fits. There's a couple issues with the ignition. The ignition doesn't really fit the R6 top tree very well. And my R6 forks that I have are actually damaged, and I'm not sure if I can repair them. So I may source another set of R6 forks for the bike. And basically, once I spend the money on the R6 forks, whether I fix the set I have or if I buy another set, the R6 front end's going on the bike. It's just a matter of me getting the money together to buy some of the R6 fork components or buy a new set of R6 forks.
Dude, what do you think the stance is going to look like when you set it down for the first time?
I don't know. Well,
No idea. We'll
I
know
have
when we.
Yeah, no, I do have a general idea because the R6 trees that I have, they pretty much have all the same angles as the FZ6R. So your rake angle and stuff on the bike's not going to change, and the offset even from your forks to the center of your triple tree, they don't change. The year that I have is the exact same thing as the FZ6R. So the stance is going to look similar. The only difference that's going to happen, the forks might be a little bit shorter, so I may have to do some adjustments once I get it on the ground and have the bike supporting its own weight, and then I'll have to play with to see if I have to make some adjustments.
Now, speaking of the geometry and everything with the forks and the way they ride on the just on the frame of the machine, you put out an excellent video explaining all of that geometry and how it's going to play into the modification on your bike. And I encourage everyone watching to go check out RideThe6's channel and look up that video he posted, because I honestly didn't have the understanding of rake and front end geometry that I thought I did until I watched his video, and he did a damn fine job of explaining exactly how all that works out with graphics and everything. So it's
Yeah,
really worth a watch.
I tried, like, because I had to do a little bit of research too, because I wasn't sure. And before I went ahead with this project, I wanted to kind of have a basic grasp of the concept as to maybe what's going to change and what isn't going to change geometry wise on the bike. You can really run into problems if you change the geometry of a bike too drastically. I think you can really run into some issues.
I'm curious as to how it's going to handle, man. You know, the thing about the FZ6R is that she's top heavy compared to the R6. So I'm
Yeah.
really curious as to how that new geometry is going to translate as far as tipping in the turns and everything goes.
Yeah, like a lot of people say the FZ6R will like pogo in the corners, like because the suspension is very soft on the bike and it
Yeah,
does a lot of bouncing, right? So I'm hoping to firm the suspension up a little bit. I did a test on my other parts bike where I put like a heavier weight fork oil in the FZ6 forks, and it does make a bit of difference, but there's still no adjustability in the forks. And that's
right.
another reason why I want to put the R6 front end on the bike because I do want to have some adjustability, you know.
Now I've seen a an aftermarket cartridge set that you can install. It's available on Bike Bandit. I think it's about 160 bucks. And there are a few guys on the 600cc.org forum that I think have put those things in and said they had great results with them.
Yeah, I have seen them, and there's another company out there too that my buddy had reached out to, and they sell like some kind of aftermarket spring or suspension setup inside the tubes, but it was pricey too. Like it was over $1,000. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, for that price, I mean, I can just go buy an R, like a brand new R6 fork is $1,000 a piece. So it can be pricey. If I'm gonna buy a brand new set of R6 forks, just the forks alone are gonna cost me like $2,000 Canadian.
Yeah, that's insane, man. You can buy an entire new FZ6R,
Well, that's what
you
I'm
know?
saying. Like, right, but there's other options too where you replace half the fork, and that'll be like $1,000. Or there's a couple sets of forks I'm looking at on eBay right now. Um, and I'm trying to stick with the '05 year because I don't want to mix match maybe parts from a 2018 onto an '05 triple tree, and there's a good chance something might not fit or the sizes have changed. Um,
Yeah.
you know. So what's Skylar asking here? You want to put that one on the screen?
Yeah, so Skylar says, do you need any parts? Then he
Um,
says, for the FZ6R, for to
well,
get FZ6R.
I did borrow my front stay bracket from my parts bike, so I probably could use another stay bracket to put back on my other bike. Um, I could use that. There's some small plastic pieces maybe um, down the road I might need, but the biggest thing right now is I'm trying to get the forks on the bike first because like I've already checked the clearances. Nothing really hits except for the ignition, the FZ6R ignition. But once I get the R6 front end on the bike, then I can drop the bike off the lift and we can like work on it normally.
Yeah, we know, dude. We know.
So what about you? Like, so what kind of mods do you have on your FZ6R?
Well, oh, I guess the biggest thing I have outside of exhaust and fuel controller, aesthetically or performance wise, is the Woodcraft clip-on kit. Um, I love it. I personally feel like the bike should have come with clip-ons from the factory. I get it though. I understand the the sort of sport touring application that this bike was built on. The reason why it has straight bars from the factory, but um, it's like having the look, the absolute look of a super sport, yet you still have a decently upright riding position. Like your rider's triangle is not overly aggressive at all, yet you still have the low rake of the clip-ons, you know?
Yeah.
Other than that, I get a lot of questions about my exhaust. I actually have a header off the 2005 R6. So it bolts right up. From what I understand, you may or may not need to bend the collector down in order to clear the oil pan on the FZ6R. I was lucky enough to get this exhaust and a Yoshimura slip-on sent to me by a subscriber years ago. He just commented out of nowhere and was like, "Hey, do you want an R6 header and Yoshi can?" I was like, what? And he was serious. And this
Yeah.
guy was like in the New Orleans area, and he mailed me. You know, I sent him cash just for shipping, right? I was like, dude, I can't just take this from you for free. So I sent an undisclosed amount of cash to him. Let's just say I got a killer freaking deal on what essentially is an aftermarket exhaust for this bike.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually tried the R6 headers at first too. I found a bike, or I found a guy that had crashed an R6 or something, and there was a little ding in the headers. So I said I picked it up for like $40 for the headers. It wasn't in great shape, but I was like, okay, let me see if I could fit it to the bike. Because at that time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go out and spend like $1,000 on an exhaust system, right?
yeah,
But yeah, it didn't work out. The set that I had, it hit the oil pan underneath, which is the common problem with the R6 headers if you don't get the right year. Um, and that's kind of one reason why I picked like some components from the '05 R6 as well, because I knew like our bikes are somewhat based on the '05 R6.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The engine primarily is
yeah.
kind of blueprinted off that '05 R6. Skyler says that he recommends getting the braided brake line kit. I do have a Spiegler kit. I know a lot
Yeah.
of guys are golfer fans, but I want it to be a little different, so I went with Spiegler. They're red stainless braided. Well, they're stainless braided, but you know it's got the you can choose whatever color you want. I went with red, obviously.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'm gonna be doing something similar too when I get the R6 front end on the bike. I also will be going to like a braided stainless steel line, and there's a couple colored lines or carbon look lines out there from the UK that I can get. The name of the company escapes me right now, but I already have been looking, and that is definitely one thing I am going to put on the front end of the bike just to maybe match the enhanced braking and performance of the R6 front end.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, other than that, performance wise, I'm running the DynoJet, the Power Commander fuel controller, PCFC. It's very similar to the Power Commander 5, except it doesn't have all the crazy customization options. Basically, it runs Power Commander 5 maps. So
Yeah,
whatever
I was wondering
out
that
there,
too. I
yeah,
saw that fuel controller and I was like, what's the difference? Like I don't even know. So like when I bought mine, I just bought the PCV, so the Power Commander 5. But yeah, like I sent you that Hindle map, and the one that runs on my Power Commander 5 runs perfectly fine on your fuel controller as well, it seems.
yeah, and actually, the file extension is like .pcv, I think it is. Um, it's exactly the same. So I run the same software that you run as well, the DynoJet software, and it works exactly like the PC5. Um, the only thing is I don't have the speedo sensor option and all that stuff. However, the PCFC does have a set of rheostats that are adjustable. So it's like low, mid, and high range. So you can take whatever map you're running, and if you want to tweak it on the fly, you can use a little screwdriver and you can actually pull off on the side of the road real time. Like you don't have to disconnect or anything. You don't have to have a laptop with you. You can reach down there and whatever power range you want to adjust, you can turn it up. Right now, everything is set at 50%, which is technically neutral. And so what that means is the feature and the tune, how would you say that? The actual way that the tune is mapped by design is what the controller is running with everything set at 50%. In other words, it's not tuned up or tuned down. It's what the map is written as right there across the board, like default.
Yeah.
Sam
Um,
says he wants some red speaklers as well. You do, and they're priced very well too. In fact, they're a little
yeah.
bit cheaper than Golfer. Don't think that didn't have something to do with my decision either.
Yeah, like the braided lines can be expensive. Everything I've seen, they're about I think about 160 or $170 US,
Yeah,
give or take somewhere in that area. But I can see it as being a decent upgrade. Like my other bike obviously has like very high end performance stuff, like brake lines, Brembo stuff. Like it's night and day difference with that and the FZ6R.
we
Very
do
different.
have to discuss, guys. If you don't know, all right. So clearly, this theme is the Yamaha FZ6R, but RideThe6 happens to have quite the exotic machine. Why don't you tell us about that machine?
Yeah, like I could probably pan the camera over actually. The
Yeah,
beautiful part with this webcam is I can control it without even like actually touching the camera. So
that's
um,
sweet.
so this is the FZ6R under repair, getting the R6 conversion. Um, the other white one in the back there, that is the FZ6R parts bike. And then over there, kind of on the other side, is an MV Agusta F3675. So very rare bike, especially here in Canada, because we don't have any dealers on this bike in Canada anywhere. So it is very, very rare.
Yeah, Jay Gilbert comments, in the event I purchase another Fizzer, what type of weight gain supplement and exercise regimen would you recommend so I can bulk up and easily move it in my garage without obscenities? Thanks. Yeah, no doubt, dude. This bike is heavy, and it has gotten away from me just trying to move it around casually. Like, it's ridiculously heavy on top, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so tell us about riding the MV Agusta F3. What is that like compared to the FZ6R?
Um, it is a very, very aggressive riding position. It's the first thing you're definitely going to notice when you're switching to like a super sport bike. And that's kind of that was one of the favorite things with my FZ6R. The riding position is super, super comfortable. I've ridden this bike for 8 to 10 hours consecutively and not been in any pain after getting off the bike. Now, I've also done it on the MV Agusta, and it's not quite the same. The seat's not soft, it's not plushy, it's not cushy. It's rough. Like you can really feel the road. Like it's got that Italian ruggedness, roughness to it.
Yeah,
It's the riding position is not comfortable. It's not, but it's not meant. Guys on these bikes don't ride them for 8 to 10 hours. They're run
right.
shorter distances usually.
Now that's a 675, correct?
Correct.
That's a triple
It's a triple. Yeah.
inline three. That's cool, man.
Yep, and it's very different. The sound's very different. The feel of it's very different, but it doesn't have the linear power curve that the FZ6R has. Like it's pretty good. Like, and then all of a sudden when it hits, it's almost like a second level. You'll just be riding along, and then you hit the certain RPM, and the power band just rockets through the roof. Like the front
Wow.
wheel will come off the ground on its own, just like pure throttle. Don't even have to pull it up or anything. So a lot more power.
Have you ever gotten in a kind of a hairy situation on that machine? Because you've sat down your Fizzer before, so I'm curious.
I have had the rear end of the MV Agusta step out on me a couple times, mainly shifting between gears because it does have the quick shifter. And if you're too high up in the RPMs when you change gears, well, I think I was going from first to second at the time. And later on, someone told me, oh, maybe you shouldn't use the quick shift from first to second. But I was heavy on the throttle in first, and I quick shifted it to second, and the whole end of the bike just scooched sideways. But the good thing is the bike has traction control, it has ABS, it has a lot of those high-end features that the FZ6R doesn't have. And going back to the, I guess, Jay Gilbert's comment about the weight, that is probably the biggest downfall of the FZ6R. It is the weight of the bike. I think it's 467 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So yeah, there are some things you can do to reduce some weight, guys. Obviously, the exhaust is a big one. Once you get that big, bulky FZ6R can off the bike, I think it's about 20 pounds or 10 pounds right there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
ridiculous.
it's heavy, like it's super, super heavy. Another thing you can do is the battery. Guys are putting lithium batteries in these bikes and stuff now. I think that can drop you another 10 pounds. But lithium batteries can be pricey too.
You have to be careful with this bike when it comes to investing your money and changing it into something it's not. And I'm not poo-pooing what you're doing. What you're doing is very special and unique. But what I'm getting at is, you know, you start talking about weight gains and stuff, things that are easily achievable in super sports just because the market is there for that kind of thing. But like you're not gonna go get some freaking magnesium Marquesne wheels or some crazy shit and put on a Yamaha FZ6R, So some people would, and that's cool, It's just it's almost apples and oranges, man. A $20,000 Ducati, I can see that, but it's just this is almost like the poor man's super sport in some respects, you know?
Yeah, comfortable super sport.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the biggest thing is it's the frame that makes up most of the weight because this is a steel
Yeah,
frame.
solid steel, man.
It's a
Yeah.
steel frame, and that's kind of, I think that's the biggest drawback with the weight. Like any other bike, like an R6, like anything else like that, it's going to be an aluminum frame, right? Now, the downfall to that is if you crash a bike that has an aluminum frame, there's a good chance the bike is a write-off, an absolute
Yeah.
destroyed write-off. Like this is probably why this bike has still survived after not one crash, but two crashes, is because of this steel frame. Like any other bike, I think would be totaled. It'd be written off 100%.
Yep. But you look at the R6 nowadays, and she's not even existent anymore. I had a comment. I posted a video about the demise of the 600cc class like a couple of weeks ago, and I actually had a comment today. This guy says he just picked up a 2020 model. I asked him what color he went with, and he hasn't commented back yet.
Yeah. So
I've always been a fan of blue bikes, man. I like blue bikes.
well, blue is Yamaha's color, though. That's their
Yeah.
racing color.
My favorite color scheme for the FZ6R is the 2013 Team Yamaha Blue. It's got the GYTR graphics on the bottom, what I call guider. Awesome.
Yep. I've seen a couple of those around. And have you ever seen like I guess the orange, the copper burnt orange? Have you
Yes.
ever?
That's a rare one, man.
They're very rare. Like I don't see hardly any of those around.
Yeah. You don't see white ones around very much either, man. You've got a white one, and
Well,
that's a rare bike as well.
I have a white one now, but initially this was red. So, but because I dented the tank up, I ended up switching to a white tank, and my fairings were already white, and then I put a white nose cowl on it. So, I may keep the bike white. Like this black nose cowl might actually go on my parts bike. I'm not even sure yet. Like that's so far down the road. Like I'm just focused on getting the R6 parts on the bike and going from there.
Yeah. Jay Gilbert says yellow with the star. That's a rare.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those too. And I also agree with him with the weight on the highway. This bike really, it's very, very stable on the highway because of that weight. Like it breaks the wind very nice, and it's stable and it's planted. Like I've had this bike over 200 kilometers an hour on the highway. You wouldn't even know it. It's so smooth.
It really is. By the way, for folks who are curious about the colors and stuff, there are various options available on eBay, and there's a couple of these Chinese websites that are selling the ABS molded aftermarket fairings. Kind of mixed reviews about them, but mostly positive actually. Very little modification required. They run between like 500 and 700 bucks for a full set, but you can get any color imaginable, really. I mean, they've got purple, Kawasaki green, you name it. You can get all sorts of different things. Couple of different blue options too, like solid blue with just the FZ6R logo and like in white background and like solid blue. I think it looked awesome.
Yeah, I've always thought about doing something really funky with the colors, but it's really hard. It's kind of hard for me because I have the red frame, so there's not a lot of crazy stuff I can do.
Quasimotor says he's got that 2013, man. Sweet.
Yeah.
I used to ride with a guy up in Dallas, Texas Moto. He used to post content on here as well, but he's kind of out of the game now. He sold his bike actually, and he had a 2013 in the blue. And I don't know if you can see, and a lot of you guys are already aware, but
Bro,
I've got
your ass is blue.
Yeah, her ass is blue. That is a very rare piece. You cannot find these in the world anymore. It's a guider piece. It was put out just for maybe 3 years. What you got there?
I actually have one here too.
What color are we looking at for the folks at home?
Actually, when I bought it, it was blue.
Yep.
When I went shopping for this thing online, I bought it off Yamaha's, I guess, website in the US, and they had it shipped to the US. And the only two options when I bought it was yellow or blue. But I don't think the camera's going to pick it up, but I actually have a carbon dip on this piece.
Yeah, that's sick.
It's actually broken. My tabs and stuff here on the back are busted. So
what are you going to do about that?
Well, I'm not sure. I might go try to find a 3D printer guy and see if he could like maybe print up the piece that's missing, and I'll just glue it back in. But yeah, this was unfortunately damaged in my first crash, and I think it was the first thing I ran to pick up after I got up on my feet. I'm like, oh, yeah, not my like unicorn piece.
Valuable piece, man.
Man, this piece is expensive. Like,
yeah, it's a unicorn accessory.
It is like, and because I had to pay US dollar for it, by the time you convert it to Canadian, it's even more. This piece probably cost me close to $300, and then I had it carbon dipped as well. So it's excuse me. So yeah, this piece probably cost me close to $400, and now it's broken. But I absolutely refuse to throw this piece out, because one day I will have it fixed and it will be back on the FZ6R.
You still have the metal bracket, right?
I do have the metal bracket, yes.
There you go.
So it kind of sheared off a little bit, so I'm just going to glue it back together. I actually had reached out to a couple companies to see if they could take this and mold it and maybe make some for the community, but it sounded like it was going to be very, very expensive, adventure. So I was like, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
We're talking thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you start crossing that line.
Yeah.
That monetary, what makes sense anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm starting to get a little fidgety over here, you have to pardon me, because it's starting to get a little chilly out here. The sun's starting to go down, and yeah, it's dropping quick.
Yeah, and he's in Texas.
Yeah, like you and I discussed earlier, though, man. I wanted a decent backdrop,
Yeah.
Because as you can see, we are currently living in a fifth wheel coach full time, so the interior is kind of bland for a live stream. I'm digging the background though, and it works out. It's just it's starting to get cold.
Yeah. Well, look at me, man. I'm wearing two sweaters and a t-shirt, and I'm sitting in my garage. So
yeah,
I'll gladly trade you weather.
Sam says his Two Brothers sounds like a Formula racer. Yeah, it sure does at about 8,000, 9,000 RPM, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So does mine. That's how my Yoshi sounds.
Yeah, mine too, Sam. Like my Hindle exhaust, I did a video on my channel. If you want to look it up, it's just YouTube/RideThe6. I did a couple videos with the Hindle exhaust. you can hear me coming from literally probably 2 kilometers down the road. Like it's so loud. Like it does exactly sound like that, like a Formula One car coming at you. It's absolutely insane.
Hey, speaking of that Formula One sound, have you ever looked at that Radiant Cycles exhaust? It's basically like a straight GP with a curved tip. You can get them in chrome and black, and they're on eBay for like $60. And there's a video on YouTube. It would take me forever to find it, but this guy put one on a 2005 R6. And so my guess is that's exactly what our bikes would sound like, but it sounds absolutely amazing. And he does like flyby shots and everything, and it literally sounds like a Formula One car. But
Yeah,
what you're basically running at that point is just a pipe for aesthetics. It's like running no muffler at all.
yeah.
It's a straight thing. There's no baffles or anything like that.
Yeah, that's almost like my Hindle as well. I don't have a baffle in it, like nothing to reduce the noise. It's essentially a straight pipe with a little bit of wrapping around the muffler. Um, I did a dB test on it, and just starting up in my driveway, I think it was about 85 decibels just running at startup in my driveway. So
Yeah.
you can imagine when you're on the throttle. And even the videos I have up online on my YouTube channel, I don't even think it does it justice. It gives you an idea, but until you hear it in person, it's very hard to duplicate that sound. Cameras just don't seem to do it properly. I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about picking up that Radiant Cycle pipe for $60 just to play with it and see what it sounds like.
You
I'd
might
probably take it off.
you might tick off all your neighbors in the trailer park.
Oh, dude, this Yoshimura does that by itself.
Yeah. Do you just idle out of the park when you get out of there? Just like
Well, that's another thing about RV parks, man, is they're all about respecting your neighbors and such. So they have a posted speed limit of 10 miles an hour, and I have seen folks kind of zip through it like 20 and they get on. So to answer your question, yeah, I basically idle out in first gear.
yeah,
And you can see in some of my videos where I start recording a vlog on the way out, headed to work or whatever. I crawl all the way through until I get to the interstate. Same thing for coming back in.
yeah. So yeah, let's get on that for a second. So I know you and I have talked a little bit before, and you're mainly using your bike for commuting, right?
Yes.
Have you
Yep.
ever had it out in the twisties on a twisty road
Yeah.
anywhere?
Absolutely. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, here in Central Texas, down in the hill country and stuff. Out towards I say towards Austin, not really towards Austin, but not that far, but probably like 30 minutes away. I've gotten to hit some hill country roads.
yeah. And what's the
Yeah.
what's the longest ride you've ever been on good old Evelyn there?
Back in Dallas, the Stay Broke crew, Careless Rides. Um, it was SBK, Stay Broke crew. It's just this big. It's the ride that Jake the Garden Snake was always on, and he'd post when it would make the news. You're talking like probably 1, 2, 3,000 bikes show up for
Yeah,
this thing in Dallas every year, and all in all, it's probably about a 3.5, 4 hour ride, all said and done.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you don't even notice it's that long, dude, because it's so intense and so just freaking nerve wracking riding with that many bikes.
It is.
Holy crap,
It
dude!
is. I've done it here too. Like we do some big rides here in Ontario. We have a big Highway of Heroes ride that happens. There was
Yep.
also there's another kind of bike group inside the city a little bit. When they get the bikes together, there's anywhere from 300 to 400 bikes usually, which isn't a lot, but you put that many bikes in a crowded space on the road, it is a bit nerve wracking. And I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of these huge rides with that many bikes, man.
No, no. It's fun to do once or twice just to say you did it and to be part of it, right? Because you can go look at my channel. Those are vlogs. Though I've vlogged throughout those rides a couple of times just to have content to post up, and it gets nuts, dude. Somebody always goes down. Always. At
Yeah.
least one rider will go down on that ride every year.
Yeah.
Quasi Motard says Twisted Sisters. Yes, I know. It's a thing. I know. I need to hit it up. Twisted Sisters is a series of 3 highways in Central Texas that is virtually world famous. There are websites dedicated to the Twisted Sisters ride, and you can just punch in Google image search Twisted Sisters motorcycle or whatever, and you'll see all sorts of landscape photos pop up. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I don't think I've heard of it before, but now that you guys are talking about it, I'm gonna have to go check it up on the YouTube here tonight.
Yeah, there's all sorts of content where people have filmed riding the Twisted Sisters. It's an all-day event. It's like it's in between here and San Antonio, and it's through like small mountainous terrain and little canyon runs. Not quite like out in Cali, but like micro size. It's supposed to be awesome.
Yeah.
Quasi Motard says you should ride down here to Texas. You should.
Man, I would. I totally would, but I cannot get through the border right now, man. Everything is shut down. Like,
yeah,
I probably could, but I don't know. They're probably going to be like, okay, this guy's riding a motorcycle. No, it's not necessary.
Hey, so what's the craziest ride? What's the craziest circumstance you've ever been on your motorcycle where it was just dicey? Because I have a story for you that I've never told.
Yeah, okay, I've got one. So I used to play. Yeah, I'd say a couple years ago, I used to play softball in just like a little league, like a co-ed league, slow pitch. Well, I don't know. I guess you call it slow pitch. I don't know. And so I would usually ride my bike in, right? And all I would usually take would be my ball glove and a backpack or something like that. And we're out there playing softball one day, and I'd say about the 9th inning, the skies opened up and just started pouring. And there wasn't even supposed to be any rain that day because I always check the weather. I don't like to ride in the rain. It's not fun. It hurts. Yeah. It's wet. It's cold. So I checked the weather. There was no call for rain, so I rode the bike. Well, it turned out to be a torrential downpour, and I probably had to ride probably from Toronto to my place, which is, I'd say, about half an hour in the pouring rain, and I mean pouring. So much rain where there's puddles actually laying in the lanes on the road. And unfortunately, that's where the bike rides. You have to ride in those lanes. Like, I'm literally riding through puddles. I'm doing about 80 on the highway. There's tractor trailers passing me, sending water, like just waves of water over me onto the bike. Like, you can't see out of your helmet. You got to crack the helmet. The rain feels like nails.
And it gets inside the visor and fogs up. Oh,
it was horrible, absolutely horrible. I've been caught in 2 torrential rainstorms, but that one was the worst. But I do have to say I was really surprised on the handling of the FZ6R. Like, when it's wet out there, guys, everything is slow and steady, slow and steady. You don't want to have any abrupt movements. You don't want to have any abrupt actions on your pedals, your levers. It's going to set you up for a bad day. But I was doing 80 on the highway in the rain puddles, and the bike was very sure-footed. I was more worried about somebody else running me over because I was only doing 80. But that's my hairy story, other than crashing the bike, obviously. But that was the worst. Absolutely the worst.
That's a whole other story by itself, isn't it?
That's a whole nother probably 2 stories.
Yeah. All right. So here's mine. All right. First, a little bit of background. There's a reason why we've been living in a 5th-wheel coach for a little while. Okay. So I'll kind of sum it up as quickly as possible before I get to the story, just because it's some background that needs to be explained. Straight out of college, I'm from Louisiana. I was born and raised in South Louisiana, south of New Orleans. And I went to college in North Louisiana, met my wife after I graduated and everything. But so I work in the aviation industry in airports. And this guy, cold
Cheers,
beer. That's another story too for me. Anyway, so lost my train of thought, man. Beer
Sorry, man.
does
The
that.
beer got you all excited, man.
Damn it. So, anyways, in Louisiana, I was working for a certain airport for almost 10 years. And in that time, got married, started having kids. The financial opportunity to sustain my family came and went and was fading. So the objective was to get the hell out of there. And we broke into the great Republic of Texas and sold our house. I was a homeowner, believe me. Um, we sold our house, and we had to figure out what we're going to do in the in between time, because actually I started this job in Texas before the house sold, and a fifth wheel coach made the most sense. It is what it is. It's like it's a little house, but you know it's an in between kind of thing. So long story short, we started living in this thing in Texas, and I was commuting. This was in Dallas. I'm in Waco now, which is about an hour south of Dallas. But so I was still commuting because the house wasn't sold yet. My wife and kids were still in the house in Louisiana while it was on the market. And I was staying in a Motel 6 for like a solid month. And I was commuting back and forth from Dallas back to Louisiana every weekend. And it was, I guess, about this time of the year. I don't remember exactly, but it was like supposed to be in the mid to high 50s for the nightly ride. And I was cool with that, right? You got to have the right gear, man. It doesn't take much. As long as your core is warm, you can ride forever. Your body will adapt if your core is not permanently exposed to frigid temps. So I was good. The thing is, though, man, mid 50s, it decided it was just going to freaking mist the entire way there, with a little bit of heavy drizzle on and off. It's about a 2 hour ride, 2.5 hours. And I'm like halfway through this ride and I was already waterlogged, absolutely drenched down to the bone. And it was freaking just nightmarish. I had zero visibility. That's my wife right there, boys and girls. She says it was in December. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it was about this time that year. Um, anyways, it was one of those deals where when you ride through the mist, it collects on your visor, you know, and you can turn your head and it'll spritz off. You can turn this way, it'll spritz off that way, but it never just goes away. You can constantly wipe. Thing about it is once your gear is soaking wet, you wipe, you're smearing, and that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And dude, I'm like halfway there, already soaking wet. It's starting to get to me, right? I start going hypothermic, and I couldn't see anything either. I could see nothing because let's be honest, the headlight on the FZ6R is shit to begin with. It's just terrible. And so you only have like maybe 10 or 15 yards of good visibility with that headlight in front of you anyways. And so it's pitch black. It's interstate run where there's no external lighting, you know. So it's like through trees and wooded areas. So I can't see anything. The only thing I'm using as a guide, you remember the visor's misted over. The only thing I'm using as a guide is the freaking yellow line, right? And it was that way for over an hour of riding.
Yeah.
Absolutely nerve wracking. I was scared, dude.
Yeah.
And the only thing I had in my head was to just hold what you got, steady course, get there. I had to get there. There was no pulling over and quitting the ride. What the hell was I going to do? Pull over on the side of the interstate and just stand there in the rain? You know, so it was it was a hairy situation. Anyways, fast forward to me getting home. I was like in rigors, stuck to the motorcycle,
Yeah.
and I actually had to go stand in a hot shower and bring my core tent back up. That's the coldest I've ever been in my life, and it was
Yeah.
probably borderline dangerous. And even after I got out of that hot shower, I couldn't stop shaking. Just rigors. It was crazy.
I've been on a
That's
couple rides like that this year too, where they were longer rides. um, you know, like these 8-10 hour rides. And I think sometimes like my buddies like to ride, but they like to ride long distance. Like I think I came home after 8 to 10 hours. These guys didn't get home till like midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning. And it had to be cold. Like it's not fun. It's not fun riding in the cold. Like it's horrible. You're a
Yeah.
little bit lucky because you obviously have a little bit better weather than we do. My bike's probably been in the garage since I'd say mid-November, maybe beginning of November. Like I'm not riding till March, so
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah, I couldn't imagine riding with snow on the ground or anything like that.
no, I don't even think it's possible to be honest. Like you definitely have to change out your tires with spiked or studded tires, but even then, I think it'd be extremely hard to keep the bike upright.
Especially the FZ6R. I don't think a top heavy machine like this is really suitable at all for any kind of even partially slick situation.
Yeah,
Rain is
no.
one thing. You got a good set of Dunlops or something, right? Right. Good.
Yeah.
Rain is one.
I'm probably going to throw some new tires on the bike next year. Yeah, so let's talk about tires for a little bit. So I'll kind of let you know what I have on the bike, and then you could kind of go from there. So my
Okay.
bike only has about, I'd say 16,000 to 20,000 kilometers on it. I don't even, I'd say around 16,000. My rear tire is the original tire with 16,000 kilometers on it. Now,
Nice.
I do have a lot of tread on the sides, but in the middle, it's kind of getting down close to the wear bars. So um, I guess that's mainly because a lot of our roads here, like especially where I am, a lot of our stuff is straight. Like if I want to hit the twisties, I need to be probably at least an hour from here in the twisties. And even then, I'm not doing Valentino Rossi stuff through the corners. Um, I have had this bike though in a corner probably over 160 kilometers an hour, like a big wide sweeper. It's pretty stable, but like I say, that suspension is soft and it likes to bounce. So um, it will do it. The bike will do it, but with the suspension being what it is, I don't know how far I would push it. Um, so yeah, my rear tire next year is probably due for an upgrade, and I'm running the original Bridgestone tires on it. The
It
front tire,
Bridgestone Battle Axe, isn't that what they
yeah,
came with?
yeah,
Yeah.
Bridgestone Battle Axe. My front tire I replaced around I think 13,000 kilometers, and then it started to get this weird wavy pattern in it. So I did put a new front tire on, but I stayed with the original tires. So I'm still running original tires on this bike, and probably next year, kind of like after riding the MV Agusta and feeling the difference with some of these tires, I will be looking for something different on the FZ6R. But I don't know. Like you guys could feel free to throw out suggestions. I know there's a lot of stuff out there, and everybody has their own opinions, but you know,
You know what? I'm of the opinion that anything that comes from a leading manufacturer that has the proper R&D put behind it, even me, I'm a Dunlop guy. Anything with a racing pedigree, you can't go wrong. As far as the rubber and silica compounds that are used, the carbon ribbing and different things. So this bike, when I bought it, had Continental Conti motions on it, and I thought the Conti motion was okay. The grip was pretty decent. Um, the wear was fairly decent as well. And in fact, the first time I had to purchase tires for the motorcycle, I went back with Conti motions, and so I've been through 2 sets of Conti motions, and then shortly thereafter, Dunlop announced the Road Smart 3, which obviously was a replacement to the Road Smart 2. And what they promised with the Road Smart 3 was a new carbon-based shoulder rib that would provide longer center wear time. And what they did is they took the sticky rubber compound that you like and left it on the edges, and they put a reinforced like carbon fiber center rib right down the middle and put a silica hybrid compound rubber over that rib, which is what gave you your longevity.
Yeah.
And then, so I ran 2 sets of those. So I ran 2 sets of. We'll talk about my mileage here in a second because, as you can tell, so
It,
2
it's a
sets of
little higher than my mileage.
yeah. 2 sets of Connie motions, 2 sets of Road Smart 3s, and right now I am on the new Q3 Plus. So you have the Q3 and the Q4, which is their straight up track tire. The Q3 is a slightly less aggressive track tire, and they came out the Q3 Plus, which has all the aggressive qualities of the Q3, but the longevity advantage of the Road Smart 3, all combined into one. And so far, I am very impressed. And I can tell you right now, I will be purchasing these tires again. I'm going to go right back with the Q3 Plus again.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned the Q3. Like, so my parts bike, I bought this parts bike in Pittsburgh at the Copart auction after my first crash to instead of buying all new parts for the first crash. So I picked up that bike. It actually has a Continental tire on the front and a Dunlop Q3 on the back. Now, before the season ended this year, I rode that bike. I rode my parts bike, which technically is not even licensed or road legal. I rode it for 10 hours. And like I really liked the feel of the Q3. It was good. And also I see Michelin 4s and 5s, obviously. They're very popular tires.
Yeah, Quasimotard is a Michelin fan. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a good brand too, no doubt.
Yeah, yep. My buddy has some of those on his Ninjas, on the Z1000. I know people putting them on a Z1000.
Yep.
They're a good tire. Yep. So, but yeah, next year, I think the rear tire is done. Like once you're down on the wear bars on the tire, it's probably time to get rid of it or take it to the track.
I'll tell you something else that's absolutely imperative too is checking your pressures, especially when you get a temperature drop. Like I just put air in these a couple of days ago, and they had dropped 10 psi. They were down in the low 30s.
Wow.
Not to say I run 40, so it wasn't quite 10 psi, but they dropped significantly just from our first cold snap this year. And the last set of Road Smart 3s I ran, I neglected checking the tire pressures, and they started cupping. They had a weird cupping action going on in the front.
Yeah.
And I rode those bastards till the wear mark was there. And I didn't have any problems, but the tip in was thrown off big time.
Yeah.
By having that weird wear in the middle.
I think actually that's a very good point. Like you guys should be checking your tire pressures. I think before my front tire went out, I think I went riding one day and the front tire pressure was low. And I probably went for an 8-hour ride on this tire. I think I probably ruined the tire that day. Like I don't remember it being like that before going out. But one of the guys did say, "Oh, your front tire looks a little low." Now I didn't measure it. I just kind of, you give it a kick, you take a look at it. It looks fine, right? But I may have ruined my front tire. And the same thing, it got that weird little cupping. Like it looked distorted. And like if your tire looks like that, guys, it's time to change it. Like don't ride on it.
Yep. Jay Gilbert says one nice thing about riding in the winter is people notice you more. Like, what the hell is that guy doing on a bike? Hey, and am I right? When you ride in the winter and you come up on another bike rider that's riding in the winter, no doubt about it, you're going to get that biker away.
Yeah.
No doubt about
it. I think up until about a week ago, I saw guys riding bikes here in Ontario. I saw guys riding bikes one day when it was -3 degrees out here in Ontario. Like, I don't know. To me, that's not fun, but yeah, you're right. If you have the right gear, say if you have heated grips, obviously that's going to help. But
that's one thing I don't have, man.
I think it's a big risk. It's a big risk if you're riding on cold roads, cold tires. I don't know. I don't take those risks.
Yeah. I mean, here in the mornings, Texas is weird though because you'll have like these warm snaps and then a cold snap and then it'll freaking snow 1 or 2 days, not much, but it'll you'll have snow on the ground. And I mean it'll be 17 degrees Fahrenheit and I'll ride to work in the morning. Yeah, the thing about it is, man, it's a 20-25 minute run to the office. That's not terrible.
No.
As long as you have just a layer on, I've got some cheap winter gloves that have the 3M thermal lining in them, and that's fine. That's good to go. One thing you gotta have though is the balaclava, because if you get that air down into your core through your neck like that, you're done. You'll start
Definitely.
shivering, and then it actually becomes unsafe to ride.
Yeah, definitely. I actually had that this year too. We were riding, and like I could feel my body shivering, like as I was riding. That's when you know you're cold. Um, but like you gotta plan and dress accordingly. And that day I wasn't really. We kind of went out late in the afternoon, and then the sun started setting. It's usually fine when you're in the sun, and the problem usually arises when you're on a road where the trees are blocking the sun and it gets cool, like you're in the shade. That's usually when you start to get cold, but
Yeah,
it's
from a
not fun.
safety standpoint, once you start losing dexterity, you actually start using tactile control with your clutch and your brake, man. You don't realize it, but your reaction time is reduced when your freaking digits are numb.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I gotta say, just sitting in my garage, my digits are numb here, and I'm not even on the bike.
Yeah, man, freaking Kernader.
Yeah. Um, so let me ask you something. Now, it's going to be a little bit different for you than it is for me, obviously. You store your bike outside, even though it's under like a shelter cut type thing, but it's still, it's still out there in the elements. Um, like how often do you clean your chain, do your maintenance, stuff like that on your bike?
So, alongside the fact that it's stored outside, more importantly, I commute daily. So, all the maintenance I do to my bike is like 3 times what other guys do to their bikes. Um, so I put on 350 to 400 miles a week. And so at least once a week, I say at least, typically exactly once a week, I will clean and lube my chain. I use Motul products. Um, their chain clean and their road lube. Um, yeah, that's imperative. Now I will say that I'm currently running the DID VX3. Um, Previously I was running the VX2, and I was getting like, I don't know, I guess about 15,000 miles out of them. And this VX3 I've adjusted once, which is fascinating to me. I think it's that badass of a chain. Um, I adjusted it once, maybe 3 weeks after installing it. I guess it was that initial break-in or that initial micro stretching or whatever. Um, and it wasn't really that loose. I just noticed when I was cleaning and lubing it that it seemed to just have a little bit too much slack, just a smidge. And so I did like maybe 1.5 turns on the adjusters there, and it's been set that way ever since. And I wring the hell out of this bike's neck every time I ride it. So the chain has had plenty opportunity to stretch further, and it really has not. And it's been a few thousand miles now. So yeah, as you can imagine, oil changes come a lot faster than it does for most guys. Matter of fact, I did this valve adjustment on this bike like 2 months ago, and I did an oil change at the same time, and I'm about 400 miles from having to do another one. So I'll
Wow.
be doing an oil change again soon.
Yeah, that's
And that's based on a 3,000 mile change, which
yeah,
I do try and adhere to 3,000 mile oil changes.
it's a lot of miles for sure. Because your bike is outside, I mean, is there any rust on your bike? Is there any moisture that's kind of getting in the bike, or if is there something you can recommend to other people who might be storing their bikes outside to kind of prevent
So
that
the
stuff?
the one thing I really fight with is chain rust, just little dots of rust. And so I wish I could really show you. See if you can see this. see how my setup is?
Yeah.
It's like being underneath a storage shed, right? And so the bike is stored um, underneath the hitch right there. Right on the other side of that burn pit thing is where I backed the bike into, right next to that yellow bucket. And so, for the most part, with that cover, the bike is out of the rain. However, if it's going to be a blowing rain, I will put the bike behind me, right in the middle between here and my truck, and it's like right in the middle of the cover. You know what I mean? Because what I have found is that if you have any kind of blowing rain that involves spray, I will wake up the next morning, go to get on the bike, and have these micro dots of rust on the chain. And all I can tell you is to clean it immediately. If you don't, it's a permanent stain. Even when you go back later and clean that chain and lube it with fresh lube, even then you'll get rid of the rust, but it will be permanently stained. I don't know how else to explain it, but there's a stain there. And right now, this relatively brand new VX3 does have staining on it. So it's a thing. It doesn't affect the performance of the chain whatsoever, especially if you are pretty religious about cleaning and lubing it. But it's ugly. You know what I mean? Like you get close enough to look at it, you're like, damn, that
Yeah.
chain's got some stuff going on with it. But it's fine. You know, that's the biggest thing. Other than that, um, storing it outside also, it's the sunlight, man, UV light. So I know this looks fine on camera, but if you were to see this in person, all of these plastics here are terribly faded. And I've looked into replacing all of them just to give the bike a refreshing. It's expensive. There's that line again, that
Yep.
monetary line. I'm not crossing that line. It's like I think I actually priced it out like on Partzilla once, and I think it was going to run like $230 to get all new front plastics. It's, you know, pick your battles, man. You know,
Yep.
so that's a thing. Sunlight, and that's another thing. It's not just about storing the bike outside. Um, it's going to work and the bike sitting in the scorching sun in a Texas summer for 8 hours a day. You know, the sun just beats down on it, and yeah, the plastics. Um, I guess they've gotten that faded here in the past maybe 2.5 years or so, pretty pronouncedly.
Yeah. I might actually have some spare plastics for you, man. Like
Is that right? Would you
I
now?
I have a lot of plastics around here, man, just because the first crash created some plastic, the second crash created some plastic, and then I bought another bike that had some plastic. So once I
Yeah,
get the conversion done and I see what I have left over, like I might have stuff, man. I might have stuff.
that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about some armor all on that? Will the armor all clean it up, you think? Or
A lot of people have suggested that, and I'm just evidently too forgetful and lazy. But yes, I have heard that Armor All products will do wonders on the plastics.
yeah.
I have yet to try it.
You know the problem with those top pieces though? They have those little micro bubbles in them. Like if you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about, it's not a smooth surface, right? Um,
right.
like I don't even know what to do. Like because I have a couple that might have a couple little scuffs in them, but I don't think you can fix it because that micro beading or whatever they have on the surface of that plastic, unless you're going to sand it all down flat, I, I don't know. WD-40
Yeah,
might work too. Actually, I've heard some people with WD-40 and they wipe it in.
yeah, yeah. I think with WD-40, you got to be really uniform though, because if not, you'll get like weird shifts in the color.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah.
You can find that most commonly when you overspray. You're like shit, yeah, and it gets you didn't want it to get on, and that's what happened. Yeah,
Yeah, like when you're spraying your chain or something, like you're
yeah.
cleaning the chain and you're spraying the chain. Next thing you know, it's on your wheel, it's on your plastics. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's another thing, man. You know, it looks good on camera, but this bike is filthy right now. She's always filthy, dude. You know, riding every single day. Um, I need to wash it more often than I do,
yeah,
but I don't. You know, she's a road beast. She's a
she's a
commuter.
filthy girl, man. Filthy girl.
She is. Evelyn is a dirty, dirty girl. Yeah. You know, by this time next month, she'll have turned well over 61,000 miles.
Wow. Yeah,
61.
that's impressive. For guys that are in the chat, state your mileage on your FZ6R, because we were talking a bit before, and we think he may have one of the highest mile FZ6Rs out there. I have heard other people hitting 80,000, but I don't know. It hasn't been verified. So if you know the mileage of your bike, post in the chat because we're curious.
And another thing about, speaking of everyone else that has FZ6Rs, that's another thing about that mileage count is we just have no idea because to my knowledge, RideThe6 and I are the only two content creators on YouTube that actually focus on the FZ6R. As far as modifications and tutorials, maintenance tutorials, and all that kind of stuff, you can't find much else out there on YouTube if you're looking for FZ6R content. And I've always really kind of prided myself in that. And I know RideThe6 prides himself in that as well. He's got you have done speaking in the third person. I apologize.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah. You have done a full tutorial on a fork rebuild, have you not?
Yes. It's a bit of a pain to do.
Yeah.
I've seen other people do it on an X, like on an FZ6. I've seen a couple videos there. I don't think there was anybody that did it on an FZ6R. So, like hCup, I was like, okay, well, let me make a video on the fork rebuild. I pretty much had to do it because the forks were leaking. So rather than take it in somewhere, I'm like, okay, here's a chance to rebuild the forks and kind of show it at the same time. So it is a 3-part video. It could be a bit long, but it shows you how to do it if you want to check it out. It's on my channel. There's videos there. You'll find it. You could search it probably. But yeah, I've done it. It's not fun. It's not clean. It's dirty. Like there's stuff everywhere. But you do need some special tools as well. So
yeah, that's the other thing, man. When it comes to maintenance, that's one of the bigger challenges. It's like, man, I wonder how much money I'm gonna have to spend on parts and stuff. But don't forget the tools. Don't forget the tools, man. One good tool can cost you $100. Never mind what you're gonna have to spend on parts.
Exactly. So why don't you give us an update on what's going on with your valves? Because you did do a valve adjustment too, and I gotta say, I wouldn't have even opened the engine. Like I'm comfortable doing a lot of stuff, and I think you're absolutely crazy. Open up the engine and attempt it yourself.
Yeah, I still can't believe I did that, but it was a success. And at the end of that 4-part series, I did say that, hey, if you have any cognitive ability, any mechanical inclination whatsoever, if you can freaking read a book, you can do this, So long story short, you're supposed to get your valves adjusted on this motorcycle every 24,000 miles.
I think it's 24,000 kilometers, or I don't know, something like that. I think here it's 24,000 kilometers, I believe.
Yeah. So it's an expensive proposition to bring it to a shop and have them do it, which, I got forced into the situation really because being that I commute on this bike, the miles weren't getting put on it any slower, right? So it was quickly coming to a head, and I was putting it off because I didn't want to spend the money. I knew it was going to cost $500, $600, $700 to have a shop do it. So I was like, I don't have that. I don't have that laying around where I can invest in that. And so I started shopping around for the parts required and the tools required and this, that, and the other. And when I say I was forced into it, what I mean is at about 55,000 miles, the bike would no longer idle in the cold. And what that tells you is that your valves have tightened up. The specification on the lash has tightened up too much to where when all the metals are contracted in the cold temperatures, All the tolerances were too tight for the motorcycle to idle, and I would have to nurse it on cold starts in the mornings, like in the winter. I would have to nurse the throttle to keep it alive until the temperature started coming up, and then naturally the bike would idle on its own. Um, and so that was the first real telltale sign that I needed to give her attention. So fast forward to me actually doing the job. I successfully did it. I got everything's in spec now. All the tolerances are good. The bike idles in the cold now. Um, Albeit a little low in the RPM. I don't necessarily know why, and I've done idle adjustments too. That's a topic for another time. But so it does idle in the cold now, which is good. Um, Being as though I waited until 58,000 miles to do this, evidently some parts perhaps got a little married to a certain degree, because about a week later, after doing the valve adjustment, I started noticing smoke on startup, and not very much, just poof, and it'd clear up immediately. And now it's to the point where if I am doing a long engine brake with downshifts coming, for example, to an intersection and a red light, um, by the time I come to stop and look down, it is chooching smoke like it's got bad rings. And it lasts for maybe 20 seconds at most, and then it stops. And what's happening is when I'm engine braking like that, downshifting, when you engine brake, your engine draws a vacuum. And when that crankcase vacuum is drawn, it is sucking oil past the valve seals into the combustion chamber, and that combustion of that oil is what's causing the smoke. Um, on those same lines, when you park the bike, shut the engine off, that residual oil that leaks past the valve seal collects on top of the piston. You get back on the bike later, crank it when it's cold, that oil combusts in the combustion process immediately, and that's why it smokes on startup. Um, with that being said, I do believe it has progressively gotten worse because it didn't always do it on engine braking, and now it is. And so it's not gotten any better. Now, I adjusted 7 of 16 valves. So what I've done is I have all the parts in hand. I've just got to make the time to do it. And I'm going to actually do it next week, I do believe. I'm taking time off work for Christmas, and I will have an opportunity to tear the bike completely back down, remove the cams again, the whole 9 yards, and then some. And I'm going to pull the cylinder head, and I'm going to replace all 7 valve seals that were part of the adjustment. Um, I have reason to believe that it is only cylinder 4 that is leaking. And the reason why is because when I initially pulled the plugs to examine and investigate, my brand new spark plugs, number 4, was black. Not black, brown. I'm sorry. Black would indicate rich condition. It's not running rich. It was brown. It was oil stained from oil burning on that spark plug. I couldn't imagine what it looks like right now. It must be bad. You'll have to tune in, folks, when we tear it back down and investigate, because to remove the cylinder head, the header's got to come off, obviously. So we are going to look inside the number 4 collector and see just how oil stained it is. But I wanted to rule out all of the valve seals that were messed with. So I ordered all 7 of the ones that were adjusted.
Okay.
Did any of that make sense?
So I've had some people too reach out. And they're like, oh, the bike's not running properly, doesn't idle well. Um, in your experience, if people are having those kind of issues where the bike's not idling well, or you see smoke coming out your exhaust, is like, other than exhaust, that you see like burning and oil and black clouds. In your experience, like, it's time to get into the engine, right?
Yes. Yeah. And again, I was forced to because of the mileage, and because of the fact that I commute on the bike. Um, the performance is not really affected. I mean, I can continue riding this bike in this condition. Um, I dare to say indefinitely, so to speak. It's I don't know, man. Like it's probably, if I want full on longevity from this motorcycle, it's probably not worth chancing that, which is why I'm tearing back into it. And I got to tell you, man, I'm kind of self-conscious about things like that. When I'm sitting in traffic and I smell something like burning oil and I look down and my freaking exhaust is like pouring smoke, just for, even though it's just for a few seconds, I can't stand that, dude. Like I start looking around, like, is anybody seeing this? Or are they like, oh, look at that guy, his bike's junk? You know, I
Yeah.
can't deal with that. I
It,
can't
it,
deal with that.
it's funny too. Like, say if you're doing an oil change and you have a little bit of oil that drips down on your exhaust and you miss it, like you're gonna start the bike up, you're gonna go down the street, and the next thing you know, you're gonna be like, "What's that smell? Where's it coming from? Is my bike gonna
Yeah,
catch on fire?" Like, it's also kind of like, like you want to feel like nothing's gonna blow up on you, or the bike is safe to ride, right? Like,
right.
you don't want to smell burning things when you're riding your motorcycle because generally it's not good. It
Yep.
shouldn't be.
Yep. Now, hey, but just to expand, while we got folks tuned in, I have the opportunity to explain this live. Um, to expand on the fact that I use the term married. So, everything rides in its place down to the micrometer. You know what I mean? So what I presume happened is that since I waited so long to perform the valve adjustment, all of these heat cycles that this engine has experienced over almost 12 years, right? Um, these seals were in just such a way riding on the valve that they were happy moving up and down only in that range physically on that valve. And when I changed the clearance, I changed the spot where that valve rides inside that seal. And so that raises other questions as well, like, is it a fact, is it a situation where my valves can physically be worn? I don't know yet. There's ways to tell in the service manual. There's certain measurements you can take with a micrometer, and you can figure that out. I'm going to change the damn seals and throw it all back together and see if it still smokes. That's
Yeah.
going to be my guess.
Yeah,
You know
like
what I mean?
there's a lot of moving parts inside an engine. Like you, I follow Chase on Two Wheels, and they're doing some rebuilds on some CBR engines and stuff like that. Um,
Yep.
they found like bad valve guides. There's all kinds of stuff inside those engines that can be out of spec or be out of tolerance, right? And
Yeah.
it honestly doesn't take much. Like 1 millimeter is a lot in an engine. A
That's a whole lot.
ton.
Yeah. Yeah. Now here's the other thing to consider, though. I didn't have that problem before doing the valve adjustment. And so I'm leaning away from any kind of catastrophic mechanical type failure. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It wasn't doing that before. It didn't want to idle in the cold. I did the valve adjustment. It idles in the cold now.
yeah,
Um, the fact that it has leaking valve seals now is a complete side effect from waiting so long to perform the adjustment. So the only thing that changed is the valve clearances, which means that, again, the valve stems are riding in different spots relative to the valve seals. So again, my presumption is that these seals are not hugging the valve as tightly anymore since they've been moved from their long 58,000 mile standing
yeah.
position.
So you don't even know if the previous owners had done any kind of valve adjustments or anything on the bike, right?
I know for a fact they didn't, because I bought it with 11,000 miles.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
so this bike, before I got my hands on it, simply got broke in. Every single piece of major maintenance has been done to this motorcycle I've done myself, and it's been since I've owned it. 11,200 miles. It might have had its oil changed twice in its life when I took possession of it. You know.
Yeah. So you're essentially an original owner. Someone just kind of broke it in, and then you've been just beating her up, beating old Evelyn up on your commute.
That's it, man. And like I said, dude, I am not shy about running the hell out of this motorcycle.
Yeah.
Um, I explained in the video before, you have to understand that this is based off of an R6, but without the top end. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this bike tax out at like 12,000. Freaking R6 with the same motor, remapped with different innards, is tacking out at 14,000 RPM. So when you consider that, this engine on this platform that is the FZ6R is never overstressed by design.
No, definitely.
It could be bouncing off the rev limiter, and it's not being stressed compared to the R6 running the same engine at 14,000 RPM.
Right, and that's why you're going to hear, like, essentially this is a detuned R6 motor, guys. No matter what anyone says, it is, like, I've checked the specs on this motor compared to the 05 R6. The bore and stroke of the motor is exactly the same. So it is detuned. I don't know how they've done it. I can only assume they've done it through fuel mapping, ECU, maybe some camshafts. I don't know all the little tiny intricate things that they've done to make this motor detuned. I do know, though, that the R6 chain and gear ratios are different than the FZ6R. So that's one modification too. If you want to get it closer back to an R6, I would suggest looking at what the R6 has on your sprockets and chain setup, and then putting that on your FZ6R. But it's still not going to get anything out of your motor. It might change your gearing a little bit, but I don't know what it's. I don't know if it gets you any closer to that power that the R6 puts out.
Yeah, you know, speaking of that, speaking of getting more seat of the pants punch out of this bike, the only other thing I think I might do is the timing mod and a 15-tooth front sprocket. And the reason I shied away from those two things prior was because I knew the valves needed to be adjusted. I didn't want to put any additional stress on the high mileage motor, knowing it needed attention. And again, still, this bike still needs attention, right? So once I get the new valve seals installed and I verify that the smoke is stopped, it's healed, you know, the bike will just be back 100%. And I can start thinking about other modifications as far as performance and seat of the pants punch goes. So again, the front sprocket is the easiest way to do that. Just bear in mind, guys, that if you're going to swap out your front sprocket for a shorter tooth, you're going to need to heal the speedo because your speedometer is going to be off. A lot of guys don't care, and they leave it as is. Me, I don't roll like that. You know, if I'm going to bother making the change, I want the bike to be accurate, and so I'll put a speedo healer on it. They're a little pricey, but and that timing mod is another thing that you can very easily screw up. It's like 0.003 of an inch.
Oh yeah,
that you take off of this wheel.
Yeah,
this
I've seen it, man. I've seen guys try to do it. I saw something that somebody was actually selling some of the little wheels, but you're right. Like, you're literally taking like 1,000th or 2,000th of an inch off this thing. And
now, speaking of those ones that guys are selling, from what I understand, or at least what I've seen, those are FZ6 wheels, and they are a little too aggressive. They're a little too hot for this cam profile, from what I understand, because the adjustment you want to make, I can't remember it off the top of my head. I think it's like 3.25. Let's just say it is. Let's say it's like, or 0.325. I think the one off the FZ6 is 0.35, like 0.350. That's too hot. Like, it's dangerous to run that. And I know some guys are. I don't think that's good for longevity. I don't know for sure. I think that particular reluctor wheel is too hot for timing on this bike.
Yeah, there's mods that I'm willing to do. There's also other mods that I'm not willing to take the chance on, that it's going to blow up the motor. Once you start playing around with timing, it can be very dangerous. If you get too aggressive, it's going to plow your motor. Like, it's just going to go pop.
Quasi-Motor, it says the ignition timing was changed on the R6S and FZ6R to reduce power and stress. Some discussion threads out there give instructions on swapping the ignition pickup on the cams. Tricky stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Hey,
tricky stuff.
by the way, one thing I didn't really discuss a whole lot that you guys may be interested in is another thing that developed uh, alongside the valve adjustment situation was when I would crank up, no matter warm, cold, it didn't matter. When I would crank the bike, I'd have this rattle come from the timing cover, just this little rattle, and it would go away. What it sounded like is it would go away once oil was circulating. And there was a guy that did a video. I can't remember his name right now, but he did a video on a similar situation, and I think it was on his Gixxer. And long story short, come to find out, it was his timing chain had stretched, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
And I was like, could that possibly be what my situation is? And so when I did the valve adjustment, now understand that the timing wheel and all that crap has to come off when you do a valve adjustment, right? Because all that stuff's connected. It all has to come apart. It all has to come out of the bike.
Yeah.
And again, look at that 4-part series I put out. It's all in there, guys, from A to B, or A to Z rather.
Yeah.
But I went ahead and ordered a new timing chain for shits and giggles, just in case that was the problem. And guess what? It was. And it no longer has that rattle on startup.
Yeah.
So if you have any sort of mileage whatsoever on your FZ6R and you have a weird little tiny rattle on startup that goes away after like 5 seconds, that's your timing chain and it's stretched. And I'll tell you what, when it was on the bike, still under tension, I was able to flick it. I shit you not, like half a millimeter. I was able to flick that chain up and down to where you could barely even see it move. But guess what? That was enough. It's not supposed to move at all.
No.
Like when it's under tension, there is no play whatsoever.
Yeah. It's supposed to be very, very tight with like minimal to like zero play. Like tight.
And the fact that I could flick it ever so slightly with my fingernail, that was enough, and that was the problem. And so a timing chain fixed that, just in case anybody runs into that same thing.
Yeah. Have you experienced any other, I would say, major problems with the bike? Any electrical gremlins or issues? Anything like that with the FZ6R?
Nothing. That's one of the things I'm so impressed with about this platform is the reliability. And if any of you guys have watched my material, again, I go way deep into this stuff, but I count a valve adjustment as routine maintenance. Yes, I waited too long to do it. Yes, I paid the price with leaky valve seals. I'm going to fix that. It's fine. Outside of that, let's say that I performed the valve adjustments on time every time as this bike's life has gone on. I would say with absolute confidence that I would not have experienced any issues whatsoever, because outside of that, I have not experienced any issues whatsoever with the bike. Phenomenal.
Yep. And I haven't even really heard of a lot of other people doing their valve adjustments, to be honest. I don't know if people just don't do it, or maybe they do it kind of in the background. They don't say anything, like even on the FZ6R forums on or on Facebook, like I don't see a lot of people talking about it. I know my bike's getting close to 20,000 K. Like, should I be thinking about doing a valve adjustment? I don't know. I also have a thing too. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So
that's right.
I'm a little I'm worried, because once you crack that engine cover, it's never going to be exactly the same as it is from the factory. Never.
Yeah, especially if your valve seals leak.
Yeah, but
yeah. One thing I have noticed though is when people inquire about the valve adjustment, usually it's guys that are right around 30,000 miles, and they're like, "Hey, have you done yours? Because I don't know, I'm supposed to do mine, and I'm really not sure if it needs to be done." Blah blah blah. It seems to be a lot of people that are inquiring about it because they're unsure of whether or not they need it, and that also comes from the fact that people don't want to spend that much damn money. And back to that money thing, all of the parts, I performed this entire job with all the parts and tools required for about $350.
Yeah,
so
that's good, because a shop's going to charge you easily that in labor.
That's exactly right. Yeah. forgot where I was really going with that, but yeah.
Yeah, like no, like it's obviously best to do your own maintenance too. It's going to help you learn the bike, like how the bike works, how the bike functions. But
Yeah, get a shot, man.
it's going to save you a ton of money, guys, if you can do all your own maintenance on your bike. Like an oil change on the bike, it's not very hard to do. You guys can do that. Chain adjustments, again, not hard to do. Valve stuff, if you don't want to do it, take it to a dealer or take it somewhere that you trust, but be prepared because it's going to be minimum, I'd say 4 hours labor minimum at probably what, $100 an hour, I would say.
Yeah, and hey, if you have any apprehension whatsoever about doing this kind of stuff yourself, there's this guy on YouTube. His name's HalfClickup. He's got tutorials that cover all that stuff. You name it, it's out there. Except a fork rebuild. In that case, there's this guy named RideThe6. You'll have to look that guy up. He's got a video about rebuilding.
This guy might have done that part of it. So
Yep.
But yeah, like we know the bike pretty good. I actually had my parts bike. I drove it over to my buddy's place back in the summer. I drove it. I started up. I drove it over there. Went to the gas station, filled it up, started up again, drove over there. And then I got to his place, and I was going to come home later on that evening. The bike wouldn't start. Complete no start for some strange reason. And it ended up being the start relay in the bike, basically.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that I have gotten comments on, especially when I put out my 55,000 mile review on this bike. I got a lot of comments from, not a lot, a couple of comments from a couple of guys talking about electrical gremlins. Guys that have had, like you say, that have had to replace various relays and such. I've never had to do any of that, dude. Like electrical relays, you know, the bike gets rained on. I ride it in the rain. You know, electrical gremlins, not so much.
Yeah,
hasn't been.
I've
maybe I've been lucky. I don't know, but
you may have been lucky, or you haven't had anything really happen to the bike. So, in the case of my parts bike, I'll kind of give you a background. The parts bike that I purchased, it was a theft recovery motorcycle. So, what had happened? The people had cut all the ignition wires. They had cut the wires going into the power regulator.
That's crazy.
On the bike, things were shorted all over the place. So
people
once I fixed the wiring, I was amazed that the bike actually started, that I could actually hotwire the bike and get it started. I was like, wow, nothing blew up. Like when I got the bike, all the wires were shorted together. Like, I don't know if you've ever taken a 12-volt battery and shorted it to ground, but it's not good. It's not a good thing to happen.
Things tend to melt a little bit.
Yep. So now I think that's eventually what killed the start relay in that bike, because once I looked at the electrical drawing, all the lines, all the signals, everything that was kind of wired into that stuff all led back to that start relay. And it was fine to ride it. It was fine to ride it for an hour. I rode it for 10 hours. The bike was fine afterwards, after I changed the start relay. So there's nothing really wrong with the bike. But by shorting those wires, you can damage that start relay. So if you have a bike that was a theft recovery bike, or somebody tried to steal it, shorted your ignition wires, I would expect to change that start relay in the very near future. It's probably going to fail.
Yep. Well, here in about 10 minutes, that will have been a good 2-hour stream.
Yeah. I think more than we actually intended.
Yeah. Look, I don't mind discussing the performance here while we're live, and just so folks can see and know. At its peak, we had 8 folks tune in. And this is the first time. Yeah, this is the first time we've live streamed. You know, I say on this channel, it's going to be on your channel as well. We've already discussed, we're going to go back and forth so that we can tap everyone in the FZ6R world, all the subscriber bases, just so that everyone can experience the content. I'd say this wasn't too bad. You know, we had some good participation here in the chat from hcumotovlogs. We had Jay Gilbert. Yeah. We had my wife. She hopped in there for a minute.
We had our man Sam. Good old
Our
Sam popped in.
Yeah, Sam hopped in the original one where we just tested some stuff.
Yeah, like we were just blasting out a test on my channel just to see what it would do, and Sam hopped in right away, like on it.
Also, we had Skylar Reagan jump in here, and I think that covers everyone. But yeah, that was pretty good, guys.
Yeah, no, like obviously we want to get some more, I guess, FZ6R owners kind of maybe involved in the discussions. Um, as you know, the bike is not in production anymore, and we may see some of the numbers dwindle off, but we still want people to know that there is some support for this bike. Maybe if your shop guy can't do it, like I've had people reach out to me with electrical gremlins, and I was able to analyze the schematic and say, okay, I think this is where your problem is, and bang, that's exactly where the problem was. So I do have some electrical background and ability to read schematics. So if you guys are having problems, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see if I can help you. I can't guarantee I can help you, but I can try.
Yeah, and you know, same here from the maintenance tutorial aspect of it. Um, I've got probably 20 or 25 different conversations going on in my Gmail with guys that reach out to me asking me, "Hey, what do you think about this?" You know, and so far, I've had success helping everyone out that has reached out to me with issues, and I don't mind. It's part of why I do what I do, man. For several years now, I've been putting out this material on the FZ6R because nobody else has, right?
Yeah.
RideThe6 is the only other guy out there that's bothered putting material out on this bike. And from just viewing it from different avenues, you have people who are happy enough on a 600 like this that they're content, right? That's part of the crowd. You have new riders that don't want to go with the 300 or 400. They don't want a 750 or a liter bike, and they don't want a crazy super sport as for their motorcycle experience. So what do? They go with the fizzer, you know?
Yeah.
And so the audience is out there, the crowd is out there. Like you said, the bike was discontinued in 2017. But dude, I'd be curious to know how many FZ6Rs were actually produced. There has to be tens of thousands of them out there. And surely there are tens of thousands of folks still riding them.
Yeah.
And I find it hard to believe that just you and I,
Oh,
in the
no.
freaking world,
No,
are
there's more. There's lots. It's just
yeah,
maybe the people haven't found our channels yet. There are a lot of people on the Facebook FZ6R group. If you guys aren't part of that group, I suggest maybe hopping in there. There are a fair number of people. They're all over the world though. Like well, mainly probably Canada, because an FZ6R is not an FZ6R in Europe. It's the XJ6.
right,
So
right.
the bikes are the same though, guys, to be honest. Other than the physical look, the appearance of the fairings, the bikes are essentially the same.
So yeah, man, we had a good 2 hour long discussion on this motorcycle. And guys, if you want to continue tuning in, look, there's my kid back there. Here he comes, one of them. What do you
Yeah,
say, Booger?
he's coming out to get a hot dog.
Um, what I was going to say is, if folks keep tuning in and stuff, maybe next time we talk about what other motorcycles we want. I've been big on the Aprilia RS660 here lately.
Yeah.
I haven't ruled out a Gixxer 750 for my next bike, for example, but that's a whole nother conversation we can have next time.
We can definitely talk about that next time for sure. But yeah, like as a beginner motorcycle, guys, I think the FZ6R is a great bike because it doesn't have enough power to really surprise you and throw you off the bike. And it's very linear. It's manageable. It's heavy. Yeah, it's a heavy beast, but it's manageable.
Yeah, and you know what? Heavy is good for training, right? It's probably more important that you experience what a heavy ass bike is like before you
Yeah.
jump on something that's a little bit more nimble and capable than the
Oh yeah.
FZ6. Like for example, I've never been on an R6, but I
Me
can
neither.
tell you, if I hopped on an R6 right now, it would be a completely new experience, a completely different feeling, and not just power wise, but weight wise. And it would probably just freak me out the first time I tipped into a curve when I realized just how easy it went over, you know. Looks like we got one last comment from Jay Gilbert. Best contribution is you being a dad. Talk to you later, guys. Have a great night. Enjoy the chat. Man, I appreciate that. Thank you. This is just one of 4.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for joining in, Jay Gilbert. Thanks for putting in comments and everything in the chat. That's what we want to do. We want to get people or give people a way to interact with each other or with us on the FZ6R content, basically.
Yeah, guys. Just real quick, go ahead and shoot me an email if you have any questions about the FZ6R, any maintenance items that you're perplexed with, something you can't figure out. You can drop me an email at hcumotovlogs@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, username halfclickup. Oh, one more thing. I meant to grab them so I would have them to show, but I have a fresh batch of hCu logo decals. So if you guys are in the need of new stickers, or you just wanted one last time I had a batch, know that I have a fresh batch available, and you can drop me an email, hcumotovlogs@gmail.com. Give me your mailing address, and I will send you one for free.
Yep. Can I ask if I'm the only one in Canada that has one of your stickers?
You are not, man. There are 2.
Oh, man.
There are 2. Yep. Yep. I apologize. I can't remember the guy's name. He and I have interacted through email a little bit, but I did send him one. So there are 2 Canadians that are sporting the hCu logo there. So we are international, folks.
Nice. Yeah, it's still on my fairing too, so that it didn't get damaged, so we're good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep. Well, anyways, guys, I guess that's going to about wrap it up. It's just about 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That was a good 2-hour run, guys.
Yep.
There's still 4 of you watching. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. Thank you. I want to thank RideThe6 for joining me in this live stream. This was good. We're going to do this again. Hopefully it grows. We will expand topics beyond the FZ6R. We just figured, the FZ6R community is our primary subscriber base, and so we figured it'd be most appropriate if we covered this motorcycle in our first live stream. But if this is successful and it grows, again, we are going to expand. We're going to alternate back and forth between his channel and mine. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about kids. Wherever you live. There he is. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, man.
Exactly.
This is for you as much as it is for us. Thanks for participating in the chat, and tune in next time. And RideThe6, I'll let you take us out.
Yeah, so I'll get hCup to put the links for my channel in the description for the video.
Yep.
Basically youtube.com/RideThe6. I think that'll get you to my channel. My email is RideThe6, the number 6ix. Again, I'll get him to put that in the links. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. If we can do this again, we will. And if you guys are interested or you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself or halfclickety up over there.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
That's been all you. Peace and goodbye.
See you on the next one.